Well, look what we have here, my friends. Our zinc plating station is open once again. And here's why. Yesterday we got the rear diff powder coated. The casing turned out very nice, satin silver finish on both, but I don't want to completely assemble it until all this stuff doesn't look like this. All very crusty. So today I'm gonna try my hand at zinc plating again. I hate not being able to do things, especially when I really want to be good at it. So I'm not going to stop until we figure out what happened. The zinc plating process is going fine. It's the yellow chromate that gets applied that was failing us. If you missed it and you don't know what I'm talking about, go check out yesterday's video. The yellow was just wiping off all the hardware even after it's fully cured. So we ended up taking the whole car apart, dropping all the hardware off at a local zinc plating shop, and they're gonna take care of all that for me. And we're left with these little pieces to do on our own. All right, guys, it's a long while later. I don't even know where I left off in the previous clip because it's, like I said, a few days later, but I finally got everything figured out to where we're getting absolutely beautiful results with the zinc plating kit. When I say beautiful, I mean absolutely freaking beautiful. So here's a couple things I changed. All new zinc plating solution. Shout out to my brother Cameron for having a spare on hand. I'm pretty sure I got that contaminated. A few days ago, I wasn't even getting good, just basic silver zinc results. So I knew something happened in here. That's new. But regarding the yellow just wiping off issue that we had a few days back, I think there's two things that contributed to that. Number one was not enough actual zinc plating for the yellow chromate to adhere to. And number two was the yellow zinc bath was not warm enough. I have been leaving the parts in the zinc bath for 20 minutes instead of like 5 to 10. And then this bath went to 90 degrees instead of, I don't even know what it was at before. But I know the problem is 100% fixed because now I can pull it right out of the yellow zinc, dunk it in the zinc rinse, and nothing falls off like it was before. So let me slap on the GoPro and let's run through exactly what I'm doing. Also, I'm doing a quite a bit different of a prep now. The shinier your pieces going into the zinc, the better the end result is. This bowl right here is just sandblasted, and this is actually buffed with a Prime MX wheel. Buffed also with the Prime MX wheel. This is just bare, no zinc on here. It almost looks polished, but let me grab this bowl real quick and let's run through and get this and these three other pieces zinc plated with the yellow chromate included. So the first thing we're gonna do is step outside. You don't need to sandblast your hardware. These are already blasted previously, but all we're gonna do is fire up the good old bench grinder, and we have this Prime MX. It's the fine wheel on here, and we're gonna give this thing a little buffing. Here's how it looks now. And here is how it looks after. Now we're gonna go ahead and plop these guys in the crock pot. This is our degreaser station. It should be at least like 130 degrees, right? It's exactly 130 right now. So they're gonna go in there for about 10 minutes. You can go longer, it doesn't matter, but I think 10 minutes is plenty. Also, instead of putting a bunch of pieces on a single wire, I just picked up the sticker wire. I think it's like 16 gauge wire, and I'm just hanging 1 bolt per wire. I don't know if that is making our results better or not, but I don't want to change anything up because we are getting fantastic results. All right, from the degreaser, we are going to rinse them off in the degreaser rinse. I went away from the squirt bottle. Each solution has a rinse now. So degreaser rinse, about 5 seconds in muriatic acid. From here, we go to the rinse and then straight into the zinc plating station. Now I find the best way to set the amperage for this is go ahead, turn it way down, turn it on, and then turn off the agitation and slowly turn this up until you start seeing some bubbles forming from the bolts. So for 5 bolts, it's usually like 2.5 amp. And we're gonna let those chill for 20 minutes. 20 minutes is up. We're gonna grab them out of the zinc bath and just go ahead right into the rinse. Now that right there, my friends, is a properly zinc plated piece of hardware. Immaculate shine. There's no dark areas, meaning it's burnt, full coverage. Looks good to go. Now, if you want to do the yellow chromate, what we're gonna do, come over here, muriatic acid for 2 to 3 seconds. Go ahead, rinse it off. Yellow chromate, I dip it in 5 times. So 3, 4, and 5. Now, we're gonna go right to the rinse. Rinse it off. Slap it on the wire, let it dry, and we're done. And just like that, my friends, all of the zinc plating for the rear diff is completely finished up. Here is how it all turned out. We still need to do a little rub test on it to make sure that it doesn't wipe off. But here is the flange for the pinion, little dust shield, all of the case bolts, fill and drain, the washer, and the nut. You guys may be wondering why they look so much better than last time, and the main reason for it is because instead of sandblasting, I would highly recommend just slapping on one of these scuff pads. I got this from Prime MX, which conveniently enough my brother Cameron owns. So if you start out with a much shinier initial part or product, the end result is 10,000 times better. For example, this outer edge right here, that is hit with the scuff pad on the buffer, and then this inside is just sandblasted because of course I can get the scuff pad in there. So you can see the difference clearly. That looks good. That still looks good, but not as good as that. So 3 things to keep in mind if you're gonna zinc plate. Number 1, don't contaminate your bath. And how you do that is by properly prepping out your parts first. Secondly, use a buffer wheel or a scuff pad, I should say, instead of sandblasting. And 3, make sure your bath temps on both the zinc and the chromates, if you're gonna use a chromate like we are here, they have to be up to temp. So the zinc has to be at a minimum of 110 degrees, and then the chromate should be at 90 degrees. Yeah, that's about it. Let's go ahead and try to rub some of this yellow off. I already know it's not gonna rub off, but let's try anyway. We are still waiting on all 3 seals for this guy, but we can go ahead and get the cases together, and we can just set the pinion on to get a rough idea of how nice she's gonna look. A little bit of brake clean, get the gasket surfaces cleaned up. So this, hypothetically speaking, is gonna sit like that, like that. Oof. Isn't it nice when things work out? Now we just need all the zinc back from the local zinc plating shop. Hopefully it looks as good as mine. I'm kind of worried it's not because they do it all in a bulk batch. Here's the completed look of the rear differential. There is one bolt that is a little bit more gold than the rest. So that one right there, a little bit more gold instead of rainbowy than the rest of the hardware. So I'm gonna go ahead, pull that guy out and redo it. I'm kidding, I'm not. Rear diff's done. Just another example of me not knowing what the hell I'm doing, staying persistent, and finally figuring it out. So nice when things work out. Just need some seals. She'll be done, ready to go back in the car. Being that the motor's still out of the car, I'm gonna go ahead, throw this on the engine hoist. I'm gonna pull off some important pieces I don't want to get possibly damaged, and I'm gonna run through and get it perfectly cleaned up with some aluminum brightener. That is what we used on the control arms, spindles, and all that stuff that's over here. So let me do a little side-by-side of something that I didn't use aluminum brightener on yet and something that I did. So here's a rear versus a front. Fronts look brand new, rears are still nice, but not nearly as bright and vibrant as the fronts. Couple more pieces of hardware I figured out Zinc real quick. All of the random hardware is finished up, ready to go back on the motor. So this is how the block itself turned out. Not the most beautiful thing in the world. It's certainly a lot cleaner, but it's not quite as bright as the suspension arms came out with the aluminum brightener. Certainly looks a whole lot better though. Engine is back together with all of its freshly zinc plated hardware, ready to go back in the car. I also put on a little billet tension recover. Before the hardware comes back from the bulk production zinc plating, I do want to go ahead and get all of the brake lines and this ABS harness sorted out. So what I did is I picked up a assortment of these little billet clamps. So I'm going to drill holes in the frame, and I'm going to tap the frame with this little tap right here, and we should be able to secure all the brake lines and the ABS pump harness to the frame with those billet clamps. Well, here is what I ended up with. Those clamps are super helpful, especially only being about $5 a piece. So I attached the brake lines to the frame rail and then attached the harness to the brake lines. Looks nice and tidy. We may have to change a few things up when we get the motor back in, but for now, that'll definitely do the trick. If you guys want to pick some of these things up, I'll link them down below. I'm using the 1/2" ones. I could have gotten a little bit bigger, but those definitely do the trick. I know I said in the last video that we were most likely done powder coating, and I thought we were. And that's because I thought we could go ahead and zinc plate all of the hubs. I did attempt to zinc plate this front hub right here, and as you can see, it did not turn out good whatsoever. I did some calculations, and we need about 15 amps in order to zinc plate something this big, and our system only pulls about 5.5 amps. I'm gonna go ahead and powder coat these guys. So here's one of the fronts, here's the other front that's still all rusty, and then the new rears. The reason I'm gonna do the rears even though they're brand new is because in a couple of months they'll be looking like this. Let's get them cleaned up, sandblasted, and powder coated. May do some other stuff at the same time. Here's a full breakdown of everything that we're gonna powder real quick. Well, not real quick, it'll take a while, but while the oven's fired up and heated up, all this is gonna go the blackjack from Prismatic Powders. A lot of masking, a lot of plugging, a lot of threads and whatnot. Let's get her all prepped out and ready to powder coat. I'm glad I switched to more of a satin black. I used to do pretty much everything in ink black, which is a very high gloss black. But for stuff like this, like a hub, for example, you cannot beat the blackjack from Prismatic. A little bit of overspray came through the holes. I'll probably clean that up in the morning. But here's how everything turned out. Super, super nice. If you want your chassis parts and drivetrain parts to look this beautiful. I'll link this powder down in the description box below. Just got to reassemble tomorrow, but I do need some wheel bearing grease before we go ahead and reassemble, and it is like midnight right now, so of course stores are not open. I probably won't pick up the camera for this build, or probably not at all, until we got all the hardware back from the zinc plating place that is doing the bulk amount of our hardware. They did say it was a 2 to 3 day turnaround, and it's been 3 days. So hopefully tomorrow we can get back on track. As soon as you get that hardware in, this thing is full steam ahead. I don't think there's anything else we are really waiting on that's gonna hold us up for like a first start, first drive type of scenario. We do have to build like intercooler piping and all that stuff, which I've never done. So that might take a while, but for the most part, we have everything here that we need. And I feel like I'm spitting out of my mouth. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Peace out, my good friends. And I'll see you boys in the next episode.